Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rashida, also known as Nurshida, soon to be Doc Shida. But today we're not going to be talking about nursing or PhD stuff, so I'm just Rashida today. Today we'll be talking about my endometriosis journey. There's a lot of information out there about women's health and endometriosis, and a lot of advocacy, which is amazing, a lot of research going on, and I just wanted to share my story. This won't be a video where I explain the pathology of the disease. That'll be a separate video. But the reason I wanted to share it is today I woke up, had plans to record, and I was like, I'm gonna wake up early, have a 5 a.m. personal training session, and then I'm going to shower, get ready, everything. And right before my session, I realized I got my period. Even before that, I just felt a little slower the past couple of days, and I almost didn't record today. And it was a reminder that endometriosis is a disability, and a lot of people don't even know that I have it. It's one of those ailments that can become easy to hide, but I want anyone to know who's watching this that you are not your diagnosis, you are not alone, and there's nothing you can't do regardless of whatever it is that you have or whatever it is that you have going on. So I just wanted to share my story and how I came to be diagnosed with endometriosis and how things started and how things are going. So I went through puberty kind of young. Winter break during 6th grade, I got my first period. And I used to have bad cramps, just really bad stomach aches. It didn't start in the beginning of having a menstrual cycle. It started a couple of years later, maybe after a year or two of having my period, I started having bad cramps. In the beginning, I didn't get my period every month. Sometimes that happens especially when you get your period younger. So when I did start consistently having my period, around 8th grade and into high school, I would be out for the count for like a day or two with bad cramps. But I could still walk, I could still eat, I could still speak. And then when I went off to college, one day I had a cramp so bad. And if you knew me back then, freshman year, 2010, then you might have remembered this, because I remember my friends being so scared. And my roommate was giving me Tylenol that she had. I think it was like 800 milligrams. Nothing was working. And my friends ended up calling the ambulance just because I was in so much pain. And I remember I was like passing out. Like they were helping me down the steps from my dorm. And they basically had to like carry me out because even while walking down the steps, I was passing out. Went to the hospital, full workup. They were like, oh, nothing's wrong, you just have bad cramps. And if you're watching this and you have bad cramps, know that that is not normal. Having cramps that are so bad that you're passing out, that nothing is working for them, that you can't walk, you can't speak, you're in and out of consciousness, that is not normal. So time went by, month to month that year, didn't end up back in the hospital again for my symptoms. And then later, I was about 18 when that happened. When I was about 21 or 22, it happened again. I started having really bad cramps again. But this time I would be throwing up. I also started having GI issues during my period, and now it's affecting my daily living. Your period should not negatively greatly affect your activities of daily living. You should still be able to speak on your period. You should be able to eat. You shouldn't have to run to the bathroom every 5 minutes, having bowel movements. You shouldn't be throwing up. If any of those things are happening, that is not normal. So again, my boyfriend at the time, he was terrified, and he took me to the hospital. And again, for workup, nothing. Oh, you must just have bad cramps. So then years go by. Every month my cramps are bad, but I don't have another episode like that for a while. I graduate college, join AmeriCorps. So around maybe 22, 23, I have another episode where I can't even walk. And it's interesting because there were a few periods in high school where I would have cramps bad enough that it would, like if I was walking, I was like hunched over because it hurt so much. My grandma and my mom sometimes, they would say things like, oh, it just hurts parce que freddy prend, which means kind of like they were saying it's really cold outside and that's causing you to have bad cramps. So like they would blame it on the weather and say that, or even you hear it in our culture, if you walk barefoot, then you're gonna have bad cramps because the floor is cold and it's gonna cause more discomfort, which may be true. There are confounding factors in general that just cause more discomfort. So I don't like being cold, and when I do have cramps, I like being really warm. I'm a heat pad girl, but winter is not the reason that you have bad cramps. So I just wanted to make that a little side note. Around when I was 21 or 22, I had a day where I couldn't go into work, and I always go into work. I am a worker bee. I love working. I don't think the way Americans work is healthy, but I don't think you should always be working, but I do enjoy working. I do enjoy making an impact in people's lives. So I couldn't go into work because I could barely walk. So then I set an appointment. One of my friends referred me to her OBGYN. I went to see him and we did a transvaginal ultrasound, and he found a very small cyst on my left ovary. I think it was about 3 millimeters. And he's like, this is why you're having this pain. And he said that this cyst is causing you your pain, so you should get it removed and everything's gonna be okay. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. He also said there is a chance it could be something called endometriosis. And at the time, a lot of providers would tell you that you won't know if you have endometriosis unless you get surgery. Nowadays, they're able to tell through transvaginal ultrasounds, and then they're able to confirm it even more with an MRI. But back then, I don't know, I guess it was harder to tell. So he was like, when they go in to take out the cyst, then they'll be able to see if you have endometriosis as well, because they'll see if the endometrial-like tissue is spreading in spaces that it's not supposed to be. At this point, I'm like, great, like I'm gonna get some healing. I'm gonna be done with all these symptoms and cramps, and I'm gonna get my life back. So he refers me to a surgeon. The surgeon looks at my imaging and is like, you shouldn't get surgery. And I'm like, why? I'm like, take everything. Like, if you need to take the whole thing, take it out, if that's gonna make me feel better. And he's like, there's a chance that might not make you feel better. Like, I could take out your whole reproductive system and you still have cramps, because if it is endometriosis, removing that cyst isn't gonna make you feel better. And the cyst is so small that it probably isn't the cyst causing you pain. It is likely that it's endometriosis. So then I go back to the OBGYN and he's like, oh, you don't have endometriosis because if you did, you would have pain even when you don't have a period, which is not true. That is true for some people. There are some people who have ovulation pain, which I have occasionally, and then there's some people who just, their pain is just random when it comes to endo. I'm not one of those people. Usually it's around menstruating, or rarely sometimes around ovulation. So I don't know, like just going back and forth between the OBGYN and the surgeon. I think I talked to the surgeon again, and he was like, he's not, he doesn't want to do the surgery. Like, I'm too young, and even if it is endometriosis, he doesn't think that I should do the surgery. He thinks I should get on birth control and go from there. I practiced abstinence a lot of my 20s, so I wasn't on birth control for a lot of my 20s, my early 20s. Really from 19 to about 26, I believe, or almost, yeah, I think 26. That was around 22, and so then I got on birth control, and I started having symptoms, getting really sad, really nauseous, and I think I was just on and off birth control for years, and then didn't have cramps for a while, and kind of just let things happen, didn't really follow up. When I did have cramps, they weren't so bad that I was throwing up, or sometimes I would have GI issues, but not as bad as before. So I kind of just lived with it, and I think that's what a lot of us do. We just live with it, but please don't do that, because what happened with me is my life was pretty steady for a while, and even when I did have cramps, I have a lifestyle where I'm able to just take the day off, and I'm able to just lay in bed and let the symptoms pass. And then my second year in my PhD program, started to experience bad cramps again. But again, I was able to just take days off whenever I wasn't feeling well. And my mentor, she has endometriosis diagnosis, or previously was diagnosed with endometriosis when she was younger. And she was telling me how she had the surgery and it was great for her. She ended up having a great 10 years and then started having symptoms again, and she had the surgery again. And when they went in, they removed her left ovary, and the right one didn't work, so she went straight into menopause when she was around my age. So she didn't want the same thing to happen to me, and she was really persistent about me getting checked out. So I ended up making an appointment with a fertility specialist, and she explained everything to me. She was amazing. She's at Penn Medicine, and she explained to me that the risk with the surgery is endometriosis is very sticky. So sometimes they go in and they try to cut a little piece of something and they take a little too much. So even with my mentor, maybe they didn't need to take her whole ovary. Maybe they meant to cut off a little piece of the scar tissue, and then because the tissue becomes so sticky, they just took way too much. So she was trying to avoid that, and she was very happy that I didn't do the surgery in my earlier 20s, because now I'm in my early 30s and I still don't have kids and would like children one day. So she had me go get a transvaginal ultrasound. So this is probably my third transvaginal ultrasound my whole life. Usually there's a little discomfort just from something being in there, but it's bearable. This time it was so bad that I was crying. The woman couldn't even finish doing the procedure because I couldn't even tolerate it. And after I felt so, I really should have brought someone with me to my appointment, but I'm so used to these things just being routine. I thought I was just gonna be in and out. I took an Uber, didn't think that it would be so traumatic, but it was. It was extremely traumatic. Even now as I'm talking about it, I'm trying so hard not to get emotional, but it was so traumatic. I remember going home and thinking, something's wrong. Like, something is wrong. So by that time, it was believed that I did have endometriosis just from the imaging on the ultrasound, but my fertility specialist wanted to be thorough, so I got an MRI done. They found 2 small fibroids that they're not concerned about because they're so tiny. My little cyst is still there, the same size that it was before, and they found that the endometriosis has now reached moderate level, and it's traveled up towards my uterus. It hasn't gotten to my uterus yet though, and it's traveled to my colon, the side that's facing. So if this is my reproductive system, it's kind of gone through the wall, and it's on this side of my digestive tract, I guess you could say. If you're in the medical field and you're like, oh, she's not even explaining this correctly, this is not one of those. I didn't prep for this. I didn't review any anatomy pictures or videos, or even my own imaging to make sure that I'm explaining everything perfectly. This is more so for me to share my experience. So then my fertility specialist explains to me that because of how much my endometriosis has spread, I am considered to have moderate level endometriosis. At that point, she puts me on birth control. She also advises for me to see a psychiatrist so that I can get on a low dose antidepressant, because I explained to her that the reason I don't like birth control is because it makes me extremely depressed. So I got on a low dose of sertraline. I think the lowest dose you could get on sertraline is 25 milligrams. I ended up having to take half a pill and then also take my birth control until I got used to my birth control, and then I was able to get off of the antidepressant. And since then, my symptoms have pretty much gotten so much better. I don't have cramps that cause me not to be able to walk. I do have days, especially when I'm really stressed out, that I have extreme discomfort. I do experience a lot of fatigue. I still experience PMS. I still experience PMDD occasionally, which is basically the mood swings that come with PMS, or even dysphoria. So sometimes on my period or around my period, I can get really sad. But there are things that help me, such as community and being in the sun, and just having the privilege to really clear out my day and say, you know what, I'm not doing anything today but watching TV and relaxing. So I'm definitely in a place of privilege, and I thank God for that, where I'm able to manage my symptoms in this way. I was supposed to get an MRI a year after taking birth control to see if the lesions had shrunk, which is something else that my fertility specialist spoke to me about. So a lot of people will say things like, oh, birth control will cure endometriosis, or getting pregnant will cure endometriosis. Like my mom, for example, I asked her, did you ever have bad cramps? And she said, yes, before you. So she probably had endometriosis. It's not that it cures it, or that getting pregnant is going to heal you of endometriosis. What it is that when you're not getting your period, your body has time to heal those lesions. So the lesions shrink. So when you think about being pregnant, you might not have your period for 9 months. If you breastfeed, you might not have your period for even longer than that, because if you're consistently breastfeeding, you're not going to get your period. So for the most part, usually. So even with birth control, regulating my hormones, it's allowing my body time to shrink the lesions. So the thought was that I would get on birth control, see if the lesion shrunk with another MRI, and then we would go on with my treatment plan from there. Since then, I haven't gotten one. I really should. It's been like 2 years, but I've just felt really good, and from the fact that I don't have many symptoms anymore, I'm pretty sure that the lesions have shrunk. Getting an MRI is definitely on my to-do list, and when I do that, I will update you guys on how things are going. Another thing that I want to mention before ending this video is fertility, and that's something that I'll talk about at a later time as well, but that was a huge concern for me as someone who does want children. And I don't know if I'm ever gonna have children, who knows? I'm not even married yet, but that was a concern for me, and is something that I've talked to my fertility specialist a lot. And if you are struggling with endometriosis or something similar, even like PCOS or even both, a lot of people don't know that you can have both. There's hope. So what my fertility specialist told me is usually if someone doesn't have these diagnoses, they will try for a year to have a baby naturally, and if you end up not getting pregnant after the year, you seek help. You go to a fertility specialist. Whereas for some of us who have gotten these diagnoses and struggled with some of these conditions, we are already seeing fertility specialists. So she said that because we're already seeing someone, a lot of times, in her experience, we have a lot of success having children naturally. But if you do have any conditions that may impact your fertility, instead of waiting a whole year to seek help, if you aren't already seeing a fertility specialist, it's very highly recommended that you seek help within 6 months. So if you try for 6 months and you're unable to have a baby naturally, then at that point you should seek help. So I'm already in the system. I already got my girl. I have an MRI that I need to go get. So when that time comes, God willing, that time will come where I am planning a family, then she would be able to run tests early on and tell me what I need, and I'll be able to have someone that I regularly update to help me with the process. So there is hope. So that's really my endo story. I shared with you guys everything from the beginning, the middle, and then future, what I plan on doing. Of course, I spared you my little details, the day-to-day, but that's something that we can continue talking about as I start speaking more about this journey and the things that I've had to deal with while struggling with my symptoms. And again, if your story is like mine, please know that you are not alone, and speak about it. The reason why there is so much research and work being done on endometriosis and just women's health as a whole is because of advocacy. It's because we're speaking out. So I want to be part of that. I want to be part of the people that shares their journeys to inspire others and to really just add to the body of work that we have. As a researcher myself, patient narratives are so important, and I'm coming to you guys as a patient today, not as Nurse Sheeta, not as Doc Sheeta, but as Rashida, somebody who is also sometimes a patient. Thank you so much for sticking it out with me. Look forward to consecutive videos in this series. I want to talk more about endometriosis and other common conditions that women have to deal with. I am not a women's health expert, but I am an expert at being a woman. And I'll continue sharing my journey with you guys. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.